Well, hello everybody. Happy New Year. Ta-da! This is the first podcast of 2022. And that's not like 2022, but 2022 as those memes and those jokes go. Get around all those dad jokes that are going around. I hope you guys had a wonderful Christmas, New Year's, whatever else you may celebrate in your household. It was, yeah. I hope everything went well and you had actually time to relax and maybe focus on the calm, patient waiting that we talked about with Lauren, the light in the darkness, about Advent. And you are excited for a new year, even though it looks like nothing's changed.
You've got more snow in the new year, Derek.
Yeah, I came early because we got snow last night again. Vancouver Island is just, well, it's
Inundated.
not bad to be honest with you, but we got snow, so I had to get here early and shovel, and that was never promised to me. Apparently, it snows here more than it ever has before, and I feel like I've brought that. I am I am the good luck charm that this island needed.
Just wait till they find out, and then you'll see if they want you on the island or if you get voted off, right?
Yeah, and okay. Oh, when I went down to work on that RV, like I showed
Mm.
up, the day I showed up, it was cloudy and overcast and kind of a little rainy, and it stayed like that the whole time I was there. Sarah was trying to show me like the mountains, like the Twin Peak Mountains or whatever, and
Yeah.
some other stuff, and the Basher Mountain or whatever, and all stuff. And I couldn't see any of it. I'm just like, I assume they're there, and I assume they're pretty, but until I see them, I don't believe that they're there. They are just. I'm gonna hold fast, and my faith will be in what I can see, not in what I can't see. And then like the day I left, the next day it was like super sunny, and it only gets like cloudy and that cold once a year, if that. And it just happened to be on the weekend for the exact time I was there.
Go.
So yeah, uh, I don't know how to change that. I don't
Yeah.
know. I need
Yeah.
to start rubbing some rabbit foots or carrying around horseshoes, Lucky Charms. I've been eating some Lucky Charms.
Not helping, eh?
They're delicious. Um, okay,
Well,
question, and
yeah.
for the audience,
Mm.
when you eat Lucky Charms
Mm.
or substitute it for anything that's quite delicious that has two parts in it, do you separate the parts and then eat them all later? Like I will eat all the little numbers or whatever in the Lucky Charms
Mm.
and save all the marshmallows for last. And then
Mm.
I just have a big scoop of marshmallows and I put them in and I just kind of suck on the marshmallows for a little bit because they're
Yeah.
delicious. Do you do the same thing? Do
It
you
depends.
separate things?
Yeah, for me, it very much depends. Lucky Charms is one of those ones I potentially will separate out, just because the marshmallows are so good in Lucky Charms. But more often than not, the things that I eat all together.
Mm.
Yeah.
See, I was talking with Roger McLean back in
Mm.
Eston a long time ago, and it was because I used to always leave the best part of supper till last. Like if I had a steak, I would eat the vegetables or what Brussels sprouts, or whatever I hated first, and then I'd eat the steak at the end because
Yeah.
that's the most delicious part. He would do the reverse because he's like, why would I want to eat the best part when I'm full and not eat at the beginning when I'm hungry and I can savor it and stuff?
Mm.
And I was like, that's a good
He
point.
he's obviously never read the wedding at Cana in Galilee when Jesus served the best wine last.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
if you're looking for biblical reasonings, get the
The
rubbish out of the way first.
ceremonial jars that they use for ceremonial washing, he turned into wine and had a shindig. And if that's not an analogy for the church, that we need to get rid of some of our ritual things and just have a party,
I
I
was
don't
just
know.
talking about eating your potatoes first, Derek, and then enjoying your steak at the end. But yes, if you wanna talk about
Well,
purity in the
yeah.
church, yeah.
Brooksy Cavey has a book called The End of Religion, and he talks about that story in it and has some quite interesting things to say about it. And I
Hmm.
saw him. He's a pastor in, I want to say Hamilton, Ontario, at the Potter's
Okay.
House, and used to
So
listen to
current.
his podcast quite a bit. They're quite good.
There
Anyway,
you
so
go.
that's a long-winded introduction about
We've
New
missed.
Year's.
Yeah, yeah. We,
I
we,
didn't
we've
really
missed
do
all the
anything.
humans.
Yeah, I didn't really do anything. I thought we were going to get a big snowstorm Christmas. We ended up getting it like Christmas night, Boxing Day. But I was on the fire department. I'm like, we're going to get calls. I got like a call at 4:30 in the morning, and that was about it. So I didn't really do anything. And with COVID and the rising numbers and the weather not the best and all that, it just another year. And I'm not a big Christmas guy. I don't like.
You're big into the Jesus, but not into the the secularization of
I'm into Jesus all year around, not just at Christmas. You part-time Christian.
it's easier that way. I get in more festivals and feasts and celebrations when I just compartmentalize him into that one spot. Which is exactly what our passage is all about today, isn't it, Derek? Compartmentalizing Jesus.
Talk about that segue, eh? Huh? Call me a mall cop because I'm counting this. I'm on the Segway, rolling around, cutting in.
Amazing.
Yeah. So happy New Year!
Happy
Joined
New
once
Year.
again by the beautiful Tim Miller over in London, and you can probably see his daughter in the back corner.
She's
I
working
think
on some
she's listening
dance
to
moves.
Magnum Opus, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's either Magnum Opus
But
or Brand New. I'm not sure which one she's listening to right now. Thank you for joining us. This is the first one of the year 2022. We are having a fun time. We've been kind of chit-chatting before the show, and Tim's been dropping some really big knowledge bombs on me. And helping me with my sermon preparation. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen during this show, and hopefully he hasn't run his tank empty and he's still got a few things.
I've peaked. I've definitely peaked. Yeah,
I've peaked. I'm out.
Just in case. I'm just going to say I've peaked.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's how it goes. I peaked early in life and
never recovered.
All downhill. I was talking to someone yesterday because they were working on something and it's taking a long time because they want perfection. My perfection takes a long time. Like I'm almost 38 and I'm not perfect. Like I'm close. Like I'm really, really close. But I'm not perfect yet.
Just about.
Yeah,
it feels like just on the cusp. Just on the cusp.
Just like there was this meme. It was like this guy's on. He's like, "All right, as soon as I figure out my sleep schedule, spending my money better, working out, getting energy, eating right, getting a good work-life balance, and all this kind of stuff, you ladies better. I'm gonna be out there. You ladies better watch out. As soon as I get all this stuff figured out, I'm coming."
Well, let's see if we can help knock one of those in place for you today, Derek.
Yeah, get the work life going out. So we're going to read this passage. It is Epiphany. Am I saying that right?
Epiphany.
Epiphany.
Yeah.
I did not sleep very well last night at all, and I was up early.
Epiphany. Yeah, today is the Feast of Epiphany, which marks the end of the 12 days of Christmas, which means that we have actually held on to Christmas longer than probably most of the shops and stores around you. But it's important, as we'll I think we'll probably touch on today too, that sense of actually holding on to what's happening in the moments and not just kind of checking them off as the destinations or the places that we stop in them. We stop in them. We sit in them, and that's so. Here we are at Epiphany. So, shall I do the first 6 verses, Derek? Is that excellent? And then
I trust you.
And here we go. So our reading today comes from Matthew 2 verses 1 to 12. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star at its rising and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him. And calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet. And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel."
Then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child. And when you have found him, bring me word so that I may also go and pay him a homage." When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen at the rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that their star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chest, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. Well, Tim, any word or phrase that jumps out to you?
Yeah, the one that jumped out to me when we were reading was when King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him.
You stole mine.
Oh,
Uh,
you can pick. We can pick the same one, Derek. It's just that's the spirit confirming in us. Yeah. Is that what it was for you?
well, yeah, 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 that's the
Mm.
one that jumps out. That and
Mm.
that it doesn't actually say that there was three wise men. It just
Yeah.
says that they had gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So there
Yeah.
could have
Yeah.
been more. Could have been hundreds.
Yeah. Yeah. Which would have been a terrible song. The
Yeah,
100 Wise Men.
we 100 wise men coming
Yeah.
from afar. Um,
Mm.
yeah, and very interesting gifts too. To a child.
Mm.
Like there wasn't a crib, there wasn't some blankets, there wasn't anything like that.
Yeah.
Here's some stuff to make him smell good. Yeah. So
Here's your voucher for Bath and Body Works. Yeah.
yeah, that's exactly. Well, the gold I get, and like I wonder how much gold it was, because like they had to flee to Egypt right afterwards, and I assume they had to pay for stuff to get there, and probably I don't know bribe some people or something. I don't know how the whole world works with stuff like that, but I assume it took some gold to do, or was selling frankincense and myrrh. Like these gifts
Yeah.
probably helped them in the fleeing to Egypt because they just traveled to Bethlehem for this census. Like they
Mm.
don't have everything with them. They just,
Yeah.
it's a trip.
Mm.
Um, and now they got to
Yeah.
take off to Egypt, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of worked out. Coincidence.
So
uh,
lucky. So lucky.
so
So
lucky. Anyway,
yeah.
okay, so
Do you have
let's
any
talk
thought?
about Brighton. What?
Do you want to just get into it then?
Let's
Shall we
just
just?
get into it.
All right, I will stop the share then. So what you obviously said, the one thing, a couple of things that important to highlight, I think, is that um, the way we often celebrate the Epiphany or the coming of the wise men or magi we do it synonymously with the shepherds, right? Like in our mind, the nativity happens. We've got, Mary and Joseph arrive, Jesus is born. A few minutes later, the shepherds show up. A few minutes after that, the wise men show up, and we see this whole scene of them together. Where actually in Scripture it is divided across, and actually, Jesus himself might have been more of a toddler at the time that they actually arrived, because they saw a star and were traveling from the east. There would have been some time between those two things. It wasn't, hopping on a plane and getting across quite quickly. So there is actually a sense of actually some kind of time, and everything I hear. And as you say, I think another thing that's just it doesn't matter in the sense of, it doesn't kind of do anything problematic theologically or anything like that, but it's important actually that we recognize that we're
three
reading.
is the Trinity number, and if there wasn't three wise men, then
And how do we know the Trinity's real? Yeah, let's break.
Trinity's like a pie. You got your crust, you got your filling, you got your top. All one pie, three different parts. Works.
There you go. It happens. But I think it's just that important thing. I think just to recognize where we read into the words of the story or the words of Scripture, and it's just, sometimes, as I say, like sometimes it has little difference to the revelation of God, and the work of God through Scripture and in the world. But at the same time too, it's just important to notice when we're making those assumptions or choices or injections, as it were. So
yeah.
So
Herod was frightened, obviously. I mean, that makes sense because, he's kind of the leader of the Jews and Rome's little puppet.
Yeah.
But I find it interesting that all of, what does it say? Israel?
And all Jerusalem with him.
All Jerusalem was frightened as well. And so he called the scribes and everything together. I was thinking, they're just waiting for a Messiah to come and rescue them from Rome, and that's all what they're waiting for. And even though Jesus is completely different than that, he still does it in an upside down kingdom. But they're waiting. But it looks like they're a little scared. I wonder if they're more scared of what Herod's going to do. Like, is this?
Yeah.
Like, there's if it's going to be an overthrow of the government, like how I believe a lot of them thought the Messiah was going to be, rise up with an army. Overcome Rome, the bloodshed, like they had the Maccabees happen, right? Or does that happen right after? But anyway, like that bloodshed, I wonder if they're more worried about the pain they have to go through before the Messiah comes.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard too, like when you've got kind of a structure and a system of power, and especially if it seems fairly kind of stable. Even if you understand that actually it's not how it should be, we really struggle with the kind of, as you say, that disruption of power and what will it mean? Because Well,
I was going to say which they were right to, because Herod went and ordered all the males,
the slaughter of the innocents. Yeah.
Like they were right to be afraid.
Yeah. And I think like that's the thing. Like, sorry. I think that's the thing about like this passage too, is like the that kind of the challenge of for us, like even when you have the passages in front of you, so like the scribes themselves, he goes to them and they straight away say, it's in Bethlehem in Judea. So why have they not like set up a group of people to keep constant watch for the Messiah in Bethlehem in Judea? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just a weird thing. It's like you have all the answers, but the power and the system and the structure is something that still is kind of holding you in place, or kind of holding you against even those things that you might be kind of wanting to look for, or at least using language like you want to look for them. Yeah. And it's interesting too. Like, I think there's that sense of like where, as you say, regardless of kind of how it was being lived out, at least the rhetoric of the day was waiting for the Messiah to come and overthrow the oppressors, to reestablish Israel, and once again be the people of God, the kingdom of God on earth. And what you like, what what's disrupting that here is when somebody else from completely outside of that is responding to that exact message, and then they're the ones who are coming into. And I think this goes back. I was really reminded of so many of the things you've been kind of speaking about over the last years. That sense of like, where's the voice and action of God being heard and seen and experienced? That's outside of where we expect to find it. And what and are we like, Herod and the scribes who are just becoming like, scared and defensive, or are we actually opening ourselves up to say, God, what are you saying to us here? And I feel like, part of the story of the wise men, of the magi, is that kind of sense of like, actually the mission and ministry of God is always bigger than the systems and structures that we give, both politically and in religious circles. And so what does that, like, how does that kind of, what does that kind of translate for us in our own experiences, and like our humility, right? Like,
Mhm.
It's been very easy for Mary and Joseph, like, especially before the gifts come and they're like, oh, we've got some things for this, baby Jesus, King of the Jews, and be like, sorry. Yeah,
Yep.
no, that's not it.
That's 3 stalls that way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Looking for somebody else.
Well, one of the things I've been thinking about, um, I guess lately for the last couple of months, I think mostly because talk about deconstructions come up, and pondering that, and also the attack on Christianity, and some of that is the idea of how much of the the anger towards that, or even resentment towards that, is based on the church not wanting to lose its power,
Yeah.
its authority to be the moral compass
Mm.
of the world, and having everyone follow its own morality, and
Yeah.
and even like even some of the ministers that we hear about that have, um, not been the best representations of the gospel, shall we say. um, like, were they put into those places because they were good at preaching and talking, and stuff, and their character may have not been the best, but the idea of growth and maintaining control is more important than the quality of what's being put out there, or even the anger at, I keep saying Starbucks changing their coffee cups just because it's the most ridiculous thing ever. And that's like my go-to thing. But
Fight
like
is
the
real.
idea
The
of,
fight
oh
is
no,
real.
like they're not saying Merry Christmas,
Yeah.
they're saying Happy Holidays, even though they
Yeah.
don't. They're not. They don't follow the way of Jesus. They don't do anything like
Yeah.
that. Is it the fear of losing control? Is it the fear of losing? Like, we're so the church is so egocentric,
Mm-hmm.
very centered on itself,
Yeah.
um, that I wonder if the fear, and like Herod in this story, his fear of something else coming in, and taking over his authority. We as a church, are we so afraid of that, of something else coming in and maybe showing us a different way than we have grown up believing, that
Yeah.
we circle the wagons, or we get frightful, and then we end up doing something? Obviously not, we don't slaughter 2,000 kids, or a bunch of kids under 2, but like, are we keeping people out? Are we harming people? Are we um doing our own thing, to maintain that power? Because I, like, when I read the Bible and I read Jesus, and I think we talked about this with your dad, like, Jesus didn't come in Herod's courts to be, in the government. He didn't come in Rome. He didn't militarize. He wasn't um, oppressive in his kingdom. But Christianity now, in a lot of ways, has become that government of oppression.
Yeah.
It's not the grassroots that it started out with. It wasn't, um, Jesus preaching. Like, it wasn't him preaching and showing one-on-one people his love.
Yeah.
It's now become something much bigger, and I think we're missing a big part of what it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think we're I think we're so concentrated on being bigger so we can stay in power that we've enjoyed for so long
Yeah.
that maybe we're missing
Absolutely.
on the, and I think that's what deconstruction is. A lot of people, I'm sure we'll get into that on a different episode, but it's okay, like what are the things that we put in these institutions or policies or whatever, or these ideas that have just our preferences over what is actually
Yeah.
what we believe.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because we can, like, and I mean, we can look at, like, I'm going to make fun of the States here a little bit, but we the same thing in Canada. But like the people that are quite on God's side and fighting for God and stuff like that are trying to keep immigrants out and trying to not raise the minimum wage so people can have a living and working. Like, it's
Yeah.
a lot of stuff is quite anti what Jesus was about,
Mm.
but it's the institution of the church and using that to justify what we have in
Yeah.
our hearts.
Yeah. Yeah.
That then that's because the church has that power.
Yeah.
And if the church didn't have that power or that authority, and even when I'm saying that, I can tell people are already like, "Oh, Derek, what do you mean the church is blah blah blah?" I'm like, "Yeah, but look at what it is, and look at the New Testament and see what that is, and tell me
Yeah.
we are the same thing."
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. Because I think the sad thing is, and I can see this in my own life. Like, I don't need to look outside my
Yeah.
own doors. But
Yeah.
but I know I'm in some ways my own kind of life and choices then are the microcosm of kind of the bigger context that I'm in the waters that I swim in, which is that, like, the play is very easy to pick power over people. And especially when you justify the need for power as an opportunity or a means to help more people, right? So that simple thing of, like, if I give money to a homeless person, can I still afford food for my family? And it's like, well, actually, maybe I'd have to change some of the what I buy for food for a meal. Probably, it might be a meal, if that kind of thing that gets affected. But in my mind, like, the constructs I've created that then give me the ability to help somebody else are often the very things that stop me from actually being with them. And half of this half of the story, a large part of the story, whatever it might be, of the ministry of Jesus is not is what we see here, which is that it is God who comes committed to participate in the world, who says that God will not be God without us, who also comes without anything than what we give God. And so, like, the story of faith is that actually is that emptying of ourselves to receive the hospitality and the gift of others. And it's by receiving the gifts from others and God transforming those gifts that then we can actually give them back to God and to the world to be life itself. And I think, like, that kind of story of this story too, again, is like, who should have been at Jesus' door, bringing gifts in this story? It should have been Herod. Like, Herod should have been the one who said, what star are you following, and can I join your journey? And send for my servants to bring the best that we have, because the Messiah is finally here. And instead he cowers in fear and tells them carry on with their journey, and when they figure it out, come back and tell him, so that he can then go on and celebrate as well. But like the people
celebrate.
who but it's like, but I think that's the challenge for me in this season of Epiphany, like is like, God comes in a way that's unexpected. In many ways, God comes as weaker, and with less than what I want God to come as. God comes as more vulnerable and more committed to the depth of human experience and life than maybe what I want God to. And am I willing to follow that star to find God in those places and to see a truth? Because I think you're right. It's like, and this is something I struggle with just myself personally, and I struggle with as a priest in an institutionalized church and in a state church, or an established church. We're not officially a state church, but is like, what does that mean? Like, that God is coming outside of where I exist and where I believe God has called me to be. And am I losing that vision of the manger, of the simplicity, of the vulnerability, of the innocence, of the weakness, of the lack of? Or am I trying to build up my power as some kind of sense of, the better this is, then the more people see the glory of God, while never being able to experience the goodness, mercy, and love of God, because I'm too focused on building the thing I hope that will one day tell people that message, as compared to stopping what I'm doing to give them the time, energy, and love that they might need right now.
Like that quote I think I talked about last time, we're all innkeepers trying to decide if we have room for Jesus in our inn or not. And what because we can fill it up with programs and these different ways of doing things. And yeah, it's quite funny. It's funny how the church like does this kind of, it follows culture quite a bit, right? Like we used to do a lot of programs, and we used to do a lot of the old bait and switch kind of things and stuff. And then the emergent church kind of came out, and then it was all more getting authentic and stuff. And now it's changed to something else. And are we open to that changing? Like, are we open to, as people develop and their interests or the things that they need change, are we open to change that? Like, are we open to I'm not saying change who we are or anything, but open to reaching people in a different way than what we've traditionally done.
I think the irony of it too is, like, when I think about,
well, actually, hold on. And then in that same vein, are we trying to change a bunch of stuff to reach people instead of just being authentic and saying Jesus loves you? Get in here and let us love you too. Like, are we trying to do all these different things and reach a bunch of people? Because what do people need? All you need is love. So, I mean, that's a two-prong fork, I guess. A shrimp fork, I guess.
Tonight's theological hors d'oeuvres are brought to you by. But I think
exegesis, deviled eggs.
But I think what's really important, one of the things we were talking about before this is, like, that the beginning of the kind of first half of the calendar year in the church is about diving into the mission of God through the person of Christ and ministry in the world. And then the second half of the year then becomes for us that question about, so what is God's mission that we're being invited to join into, with the mission of God in the church and things. And one of the things I think more and more about is, like, this moment of Jesus as this, helpless babe born into time and space, the commitment of God and the incarnation to humanity and to creation. And then and I bubble it up in this moment and say that's just Jesus' birth. But it's
Yeah.
like, but actually the things that we see in this simple vulnerability, weakness, openness are we see so clearly in the ministry of Jesus outside of this. And actually what we see in much of the early church when they were just trying to be faithful to the message of the crucified risen Christ. And for us, I think that question is can we and will we be willing to take that step back that will probably first not challenge actually the culture around us, but the culture within us, as you say, like, will this message not be the thing that we then try to figure out how do we take it to somebody else to convince them why we're right and they could be wrong, but instead becomes the thing that actually shows us in our hearts where things might be right and things might be wrong, where we might have taken God and plastered God on something that God wants nothing to be a part of, because it has nothing to do with people. It has nothing to do with redemption. It has nothing to do with life and love and togetherness. And like, and it may be if we stop seeing these as like these specific moments of just like simple prophecy fulfilling, God aligned all the stars, Jesus is born, we know that he's the Messiah because he's fulfilled all these things, and now let's wait till we get to like the real grit of Revelation when he comes back with the angels and the riding the horse. Like, no, like even that has to be taken into context with the sense of like, who is this person Jesus who actually in his life and ministry shows the same fragility and openness to God and to people in his birth as he will later on in ministry as well.
Well, I think that's a good place to end. I'm sure we're at 20 minutes. That
Oh,
seems
the,
like
the timer the timer just went a minute ago, so
what? Unreal.
you got it, Derek. You know it. You know it.
You're full of it today. Um,
Well, it's been good to be with you. Nice to celebrate this part of the
yes.
new year with you.
Yeah.
And
Woo. And
yeah,
I hope it. I don't know. Like I keep saying, oh, this year's going to be blessed, or this year's going to, get doing something different or whatever. And it's like, I'm not going to put any expectations on this year.
no.
I'm not going to, New Year's resolutions or whatever, because there's a lot of stuff that's outside of my control.
Yeah.
And if I say I'm going to do something, I'm trying to be better at doing it. So I am not going to put any expectations on it. I am just going to look for experiences and encounters close to me that will help me improve myself and those around me. How does that
There you
sound?
go. There you go. Yeah, and we're very fortunate that your New Year's resolution to go to the gym more cannot be helped because your gym is currently closed because of COVID. Out of your control.
Out of
Out of your
my
control.
control.
don't
Oops.
even don't even stress. Yeah, yeah.
I'm not stressing. I'm not. I mean, I probably should be, but I'm not. And like, it's too cold, so I can't even go like walking or running or something. It's just, you just gotta watch,
Yeah.
Friends again or something. I don't know.
Did you watch the episode where they try to quit the gym?
Yeah,
You
that
know.
one. I like my gym. It's great, but I find that like I'm super. So in my work gym schedule and my cleaning schedule, if I have energy to do something, I have to go do it because that energy will leave quickly and motivation will leave quickly
Yeah.
and I just won't go. So like if I'm at home and I've got dishes to do or something, if I think, "Oh man, I should go do them," I need to go do them right then because if I don't, it'll be like 3 or 4 days before that thought gets through my mind again, and I'm like, I should go do those right now, or I should vacuum,
Yeah.
or if I
Yeah.
go to the gym, it's like, yeah, go to the gym, get on it while try to build some kind of structure or a routine out of it,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
or you get sick or you hurt your back or something like happened to me, and then you can't go, and then it takes a lot of energy to get back into it.
There you go. There you go. Peaks and troughs of 2022.
Peaks and troughs. That's my motto for 2022. Peaks and troughs.
Excellent. Well, it's been really good, and we'll see you probably next week.
Peaks. I've never heard of peaks. Like I've heard mountains and valleys. Like that.
Oh,
peaks
it's
and troughs.
Peaks and troughs. I think is the British way of saying mountains and valleys.
I like it. I like it.
They don't seem to have. Yeah, they don't have mountains. Well, they have things they call mountains, which it's debatable. But
like Thunder Bay, we got Mount
troughs.
McKay, which is I think just barely considered a mountain. It's like our mountain.
Yeah. It peaks instead of being like a nice round dome. So it has to be something else, right? It can't be a hill.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we've definitely strayed into an area that we have no expertise on. So yeah.
This podcast, peaks and troughs. Peaks and troughs.
We're on a very deep trough right now.
Yeah. We're just gonna have to dig our way out.
Well,
blessings everyone. I'm gonna end this.
Peace.
Blessings. Happy New Year. See y'all soon. Bye.